We have so much to report to you on the utter chaos inside the Trump White House tonight. Jared Kushner is now Donald Trump's biggest problem in the White House, according to an explosive new report from Vanity Fair's Gabriel Sherman. By securing 3 indictments and 1 guilty plea, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller has put the White House on edge again, and President Trump is blaming his son-in-law now, Jared Kushner. According to Vanity Fair, speaking to Steve Bannon on Tuesday, Trump blamed Jared Kushner for his role in decisions, specifically the firings of Mike Flynn and James Comey that led to Mueller's appointment, according to a source. Who could that be? A source briefed on Steve Bannon's call with Donald Trump. When Roger Stone recently told Trump that Kushner was giving him bad political advice, Trump agreed, according to, who could this be? Someone familiar with the conversation named Roger Stone. I just assume, I'm just wild guess, Roger Stone. Former Trump campaign aide Sam Nunberg told Vanity Fair, Jared is the worst political advisor in the White House in modern history. I'm only saying publicly what everyone says behind the scenes at Fox News, in conservative media, and the Senate, and the Congress, and of course what has been said publicly here on this program many times. Steve Bannon also reportedly believes that the president must take drastic steps to counter these new developments from the special prosecutor. In a series of phone calls with Trump on Monday and Tuesday, Bannon told the president to shake up the legal team by installing an aggressive lawyer above Ty Cobb, according to 2 sources briefed on the call. So let's see, Bannon and who else? Bannon has also discussed ways to pressure Congress and defund Mueller's investigation or limit its scope. Mueller shouldn't be allowed to be a clean shot on goal, a Bannon confidant named Bannon told Gabriel Sherman. He must be contested and checked right now. He has unchecked power. And just to be clear, I'm just guessing as to who these sources are for Steve Bannon's communication about Steve Bannon phone calls. Gabriel Sherman has not revealed any of those sources. These are just wild guesses. Roger Stone is telling the president that defunding Mueller isn't enough. Stone wants Trump to call for a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton's role in approving the controversial Uranium One deal that's been a focus of right-wing hysteria. As Stone described it, a special prosecutor looking into Uranium One would also have to investigate the FBI's role in approving the deal, thereby making Mueller, who was in charge of the Bureau at the time, a target. Steve Bannon and Roger Stone are flailing away, trying to find impossibly ridiculous strategies like these because, as Vanity Fair reports, there is a growing concern about the president's ability to hold on to his presidency. For the first time since the investigation began, the prospect of impeachment is being considered as a realistic outcome and not just a liberal fever dream. 2 weeks ago, according to a source, Bannon did a spitball analysis of the cabinet to see which members would remain loyal to Trump in the event the 25th Amendment were invoked, thereby triggering a vote to remove the president from office. Bannon recently told people he's not sure if Trump would survive such a vote. Remember, 25th Amendment can be invoked by the vice president with a majority of the cabinet. That is all it takes for Mike Pence to remove Donald Trump from the active presidency and for Mike Pence to become the acting president. Tonight, in a call to the New York Times, President Trump played down any concerns that he had about Special Prosecutor Mueller's investigation and the indictment of Paul Manafort. I'm not under investigation, as you know. Even if you look at that, there's not even a mention of Trump in there. It has nothing to do with us. Joining us now, Nick Ackerman, former federal prosecutor and former assistant special Watergate prosecutor. He's now an MSNBC contributor. Betsy Woodruff, politics reporter for the Daily Beast, and Jason Johnson, politics editor at theroot.com and an MSNBC contributor. And Nick, as a former prosecutor, Donald Trump is saying, first of all, I'm not being investigated. We have no idea whether he's being investigated. I, for one, am not going to take his word for it, if you don't mind. And the other part of it, looking at these 3 indictments and 1 guilty plea, he says that he's not in there anywhere. The indictment with the guilty plea is actions taken during the Trump campaign, that's how this person is now guilty of a federal crime?
Donald Trump is in the center of all of these allegations. He's in the center of this Papadopoulos situation, who he referred to on March 21st, 2016 as a great guy. He now calls him a liar, which in itself is unprecedented, that the President of the United States would call a cooperating government witness who's going to be testifying on behalf of the United States.
Well, on this, Papadopoulos agrees. He has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
Correct, but you don't. The head of the government doesn't go out and call its own witness a liar. That's for the defense counsel
or comment in any way on criminal proceedings.
That's right. I mean, this is a total disregard for the judicial process. Under normal circumstances, I think Mueller should be going in there and asking for a gag order on this individual. I mean, he has no business interfering with this. I mean, I think where Trump is, he sees an indictment of his campaign manager. This indictment is so well written. It is so well conceived. It is based purely on documentary evidence. They don't need to call a single witness to back up the charges here. It is a slam dunk. 15 years Paul Manafort is facing. That is a huge incentive for him to turn and testify and finger Donald Trump, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, everybody else that's involved in this whole Russian situation. He was there at that June 9th meeting. He's the person who came to the party through Roger Stone. Roger Stone is the person that talked to the hacker. Donald Trump is concerned.
Yeah, and Nick, we remember up until President Trump, how presidents of the United States have always been ultra careful about ever commenting on any kind of criminal investigation, pending criminal case, anything like it. Richard Nixon got into trouble by the understandable stumble in suggesting that Charles Manson was guilty before Charles Manson was found guilty, and Nixon realized what a horrible mistake that was. That's how rare this is. Jason Johnson, I want to read you more of what the president has said to the New York Times tonight. Why he calls the fake news failing New York Times to tell them what he's thinking, I do not know. Anyone here who wants to offer an explanation of that, please do. But tonight he told the Times, I'm in the office early and leave late. It's very smooth, Trump said. Honestly, he added, I'm really enjoying it. So Jason, there's the personal report to the New York Times about how swell everything is in Trump's White House.
Well, Lawrence, of course the president leaves late because the golf course clears out by then. So he's got more time. He gets all 18 holes to himself. Look, this is a president who, there are two ways that we can understand this Russian investigation and how it leads up to Trump. Either he's got a ton of people around him who are engaging in unethical behavior and he was too dumb or too naive or too arrogant to recognize all the meetings that were being made on his behalf, or he was a willing participant. And I think either of those possibilities speaks volumes about what kind of president that we have. But furthermore, he recognizes that no matter how much he tries to play it cool, the only way that Trump can get out of this is if he actually, I don't know, gets something done that makes the country happy as president. Since he hasn't been able to accomplish that, he's got to pretend that he's doing well because this investigation will dog him unless he proves himself fit for the position. And in 9 months, he hasn't done it.
Betsy, what is the explanation inside the White House as to why the president, often when he's in trouble and is seeking to be best understood, why he calls up the New York Times, why he sometimes calls in the Washington Post and gives them the big interview, gives them the latest interview to try to explain directly what he's thinking? Why does he call and offer himself to these news organizations that he says are corrupt, that he says are purveyors of fake news?
It's pretty simple. For Donald Trump, the New York Times is his hometown paper. It's the paper that's been defining news cycles for him for his entire time as a public figure, going back as long as he's been working in the New York real estate market. That said, of course, it's important to take the comments he made to the Times today with an enormous grain of salt. Just looking at the indictments that came down earlier this week, one thing is clear, and that is that for Mueller, nothing is off limits when it comes to prosecuting this particular investigation that he's working on. When Rod Rosenstein, who's the second in command at the Justice Department, put Mueller in charge of his investigation, he gave him a very broad mandate to look into any coordination, any links between anyone associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, as well as potential outgrowths of that investigation. What we saw from the indictments that were handed down is that Mueller pressed charges based on activity that happened after the campaign. In the case of George Papadopoulos, he lied to the FBI after Trump was inaugurated, and years before the campaign in the case of Manafort and Gates. What that means is that for Mueller, he's casting a wide net. He's looking at a very wide window of time. He's looking at a wide number of potential crimes when it comes to what he investigates. I spoke with one very influential conservative attorney earlier this week after the indictments came down, who told me, look, Mueller's indictments mean that any crime that was committed by any of Trump's associates within the statute of limitations is fair game for the special counsel, and that's something that should be causing the White House significant heartburn.
And any Trump family member, for that matter.
Indeed.
Jason Johnson, the Papadopoulos guilty plea tells us that we do not know what the special prosecutor is doing. Here he had someone arrested months ago. He managed to have enough communication with this defendant to get a guilty plea out of him relatively quickly in this process, and then hold that guilty plea secret for weeks. And this strikes me as the part of it that changes everything about the way the White House follows this. If they thought they were going to be able to follow this accusation by accusation, here comes the indictment for Manafort, here comes the indictment for Flynn, they now know. We don't know what we're going to be presented with tomorrow. We may be presented with another guilty plea tomorrow by someone we didn't even know they were investigating.
Right, Lawrence, this is the thing that I said is key, why some Republicans who I've spoken to were actually happy with Mueller working on this case. With Mueller working, many Republicans know that, all right, this is all being taken care of quietly over there. That's why we've heard fewer leaks. You know, the fact that nothing about Papadopoulos leaked all this time shows that the people who are unhappy with Trump, the people who are concerned about his behavior, they can hand that over to that investigation, and the Republicans can try and get their work done. The problem, of course, is if there are no leaks, the Trump campaign never knows when anything is going to happen. The presidency doesn't know when anything's going to happen. And I'll tell you this, I've talked to some people on K Street. They are shaking in their boots because no one knows who Papadopoulos has talked to, and everybody's checking their cell phones to see, did I have a conversation with this guy? Did I exchange emails? And was I wiretapped, or did he have a wire when we talked?
And Nick, if you're a defense lawyer in this case with the clients who we know have already hired defense counsel, what are you telling them tonight about how to handle themselves in the White House?
I think they have to be very careful about who they talk to. I mean, my advice would be don't talk to anybody. Assume that everybody is wearing a body wire. Assume that
Let me stop you there. What about the advice to quit? What about if you say to me, don't talk to anyone, people might be wearing a body wire. I would say to you as my lawyer, why don't I just quit if literally going to work is this dangerous?
It is, and you should quit if that's the situation. There's no question in my mind. But if you're going to stay, you've got to assume that everything you say is going to be used against you, and it can all be recorded. I mean, the biggest thing with Papadopoulos is he was out there for 3 months.
Right.
Yeah. Nick Ackerman, Betsy Woodruff, Jason Johnson, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Sure
Thanks,
thing.
Lawrence.